Hello, welcome back. Off-season Will here again. Welcome to the 2019 NHL Draft Recap Series. Today we're going to be looking at the Carolina Hurricanes, and this is another team that had an absolute banger of a draft. Almost every single pick they made has huge upside if things go right, and I love what they came out of this year's draft with. The prospect cupboard was already filled, and now it's bursting at the seams, and I'm really interested to see where they end up in a few years. Leading the way at 28th overall, they took the highest pure value pick in the draft at that point in Ryan Suzuki. I am really interested in Ryan Suzuki as a player. He does need to get into more higher danger areas, but one criticism of him is that he doesn't shoot the puck enough. I'm a guy who likes guys who shoot the puck, for sure, but he makes everyone else on his line so much better, and the points he produced came from somewhere. He was heavily involved in Barrie's offense, a team that really relied on him to be a major catalyst offensively, and I think he has all of the makings of being a really good center in the National Hockey League. He does need to gain a bit more confidence, and that might come with training and strength built on his frame, but his talent is undeniable. He's a great skater, great skill. I really like the fact that the Carolina Hurricanes of all teams ended up with him after the first round. I actually don't have many negative things to say about the Carolina Hurricanes picks this year, but if I had to pick one I didn't quite like, it was Pyotr Kochetkov at 37. I think he's a really good goaltender. He's a double overager who played against men in the VHL this year, and I think he had a really good year, and I loved his World Junior. He's probably the best goaltender that was available at that pick. 37 might have been a bit rich for me, but when you look at all of the picks they ended up making, I really don't have a problem with this at all. At 44th, the Carolina Hurricanes also took another favorite of mine in Jamison Rees, another smaller but skilled forward who really knows how to push the envelope. I think he's a really interesting pick for the bunch of jerks. He's a jerk who is now joining the Carolina Hurricanes, which I think is a good match. He's probably a guy who doesn't have super high offensive upside in the NHL, but I do think that as a two-way player with some offensive flair, he could be an interesting piece for the Hurricanes in a few years. At 73, the Carolina Hurricanes picked up a guy that I honestly thought might go in the first round. Patrick Tweest is a tremendously skilled forward who really knows how to find the back of the net. He played in the Mestis this year, which is the second division of Finnish pro hockey. That league is not a joke, and he did extremely well paired with Christian Tanas. I really like Puistola. I thought he had a really nice set of flashes at the under 18. That team as a whole wasn't super thrilling, but he was a bright spot. I think he's a good bet to become a complimentary scorer in the NHL one day, something the Carolina Hurricanes always love to have more of. And then at 83, I think Carolina took the biggest boomer bust prospect in the entire draft in Anthony Honka. He's an undersized defenseman who was looked at as a first round lock a year ago at this time, and the biggest issue with him is his decision making. One minute he's making phenomenal offensive plays that really bring you out of your seat, but then the next minute he's making decisions that make you want to throw your drink at him. He's a real cowboy out there on the ice, and if he can rein it in and rely more on his talent and just stay a bit calmer on the ice and let the play develop around him, rather than forcing too much, I think he could be a really interesting power play quarterback one day with offensive upside at even strength. I love this pick for Carolina, and it was their 5th pick before pick 90 went, and I think all of those 5 picks were absolute bangers and high value picks at each slot. Just a few picks later, they picked one of my favorite prospects in the entire draft in Dominic Fen. This is a player that to me is a steal at 90 for Carolina, at least in terms of upside. He's a tremendous skater. I thought he was one of the best skaters on that national team that wasn't named Jack Hughes. He's thrilling to watch. He's a lot of fun. The Carolina Hurricanes drafted player after player after player that if things work out, they are going to sell tickets. These are great hockey players that they drafted with tremendous upside. Dominic Fen does need to get stronger, but I think the concerns about his size are a little overblown. A being him with Cam York, he kept up in a number of different statistical categories, both on paper and manually tracking both him and Cam York's games for Scouching reports this year. I'm really thrilled that Carolina took the risk on him, and I'm really optimistic about his future as well. In terms of defensemen, they swung the complete opposite direction, going with Cade Weber. And I saw Cade Weber play for the Rivers School a few times this year. I didn't really come away super impressed with him, but what he does have is a really nice shot from the point, and similar to someone like Alex Vlasic, he has a nice set of feet for someone his size. I think there's interesting upside here because he actually does have some measurable offensive output to him, unlike someone like Vlasic. But someone like Vlasic at 99th overall actually kind of would have made sense to me. So I think Weber's a really nice swing here for Carolina. He was drafted a little bit high for my liking based on what I saw, but there is an interesting profile here for him, so it's not all bad. Continuing with swinging for upside, at 121st, the Carolina Hurricanes took Tuukka Tiiaksala. I really like Tuukka Tiiaksala here for them. He's a really great pickup. He's a nice, speedy skater. Him and Levi Aaltonen were really exciting for me to watch all the time. He produced really well in the Finnish junior league, although not as well as Aaltonen. So I think there could be an interesting player here, at least in terms of his upside. I'm not sure if he'll hit it, but I do see some really nice flashes out of Tiexula that to me indicated that he should have been gone well before 121st overall. At 152nd, they drafted another double-ager in Kirill Slepets. He's really fast, he's a nice player to watch individually, but I'm not quite sure there's enough there to really round out an NHL player. He will need to play full-time in the KHL sooner rather than later in order to remain an NHL prospect, but I did find him far too good for the MHL playoffs this year when I caught a few games. He is a talented player with great individual tools, so it'll be interesting to see where he goes from here. He's another player that has really nice value at 152nd overall. In what became a trend for the Carolina Hurricanes in this year's draft, they swung on more upside with Kevin Wall from the Chilliwack Chiefs. Now, I didn't see tremendous amounts of Kevin Wall, but he did catch my eye on my watch list for players who had high involvement regardless of their age and has a nice statistical profile that would be worth tracking. Kevin Wall had a very, very good season in the BCHL this year, and to get him at 181st overall I think is really good value. I don't really know if he's going to be an NHL player, but I can't really say that with tremendous confidence considering I didn't really lay eyes on him very much this season. Although his profile is quite promising, and again, Carolina really seems to value the analytical side of things. And continuing with swinging on value, they took Blake Murray at 183rd. A year ago, you could have considered Blake Murray a first-round pick in this year's draft, and he really took a few steps back. He did have a good goal-scoring season for Sudbury, and it will be interesting to see how he does as that team improves. He doesn't really have much of a playmaking side to him, but he's a big center who can score goals, and at 183rd overall, for someone who had such high hopes coming into the year, it's a good swing, and you hope he finds the gear that he had last year. And with their second-last pick in the draft, as is tradition, the Carolina Hurricanes swung on high involvement, high upside guys that were just slipping through the draft. I always came away pretty impressed with Massimo Rizzo, but again, I'm not sure there was quite enough there to really make the package worthwhile. I'm always skeptical of players who don't really have a specific skill that they can really master that jumps off the ice when you watch them play. And I feel like Massimo Rizzo has that quality that pushed him down draft boards a little bit, but I do think the analytical profile is really, really nice with him. He was the second last pick in the draft, so you might not work out with him, but he's a worthwhile swing to take in this slot, and there were some players that went before him that probably shouldn't have been drafted in their slot. So I don't think you can be too upset with Carolina's strategy with that pick. So if you've watched Scouching reports before, you'll recognize the rating system that we use. The letter in this video is going to indicate the total amount of potential for the draft picks the team made, and the letter indicates the likelihood of reaching that potential for the class as a whole. And with Carolina, they are right up there with some of my other favorite draft classes from this year's draft. I think they're a strong 1B. There were a few players that were available at these various picks that Carolina could have taken that I personally like better, but at the end of the day, I think they got a really high upside group of players here that really run the gamut of playing styles. They've got nice scoring wingers in Patrick Puistola and Tuukka Tiexula. They've got great playmakers in Ryan Suzuki. They've got remarkably fun defensemen to watch in Anthony Honka and Dominic Fen. There's a lot of really nice swings for the fences late in the draft, like Kevin Wall, Massimo Rizzo, Kirill Slepets. It's a really nice draft for the Carolina Hurricanes, and I would be really surprised if they didn't come away with at least 3 NHL players from this group. So that's it for this one. In the next video, we're going to profile the San Jose Sharks. If you liked it, you could click all the buttons you see below me so you never miss another video. If you really liked it, you could support us on Patreon, where you get access to input on players I should track, as well as spreadsheets for drafted and undrafted prospects, and plenty of other goodies. Or you could pick up some merchandise in the Scouchwear shop. All links are in the description below. So that's it, and I hope you join me in the video where we break down the San Jose Sharks.